Today we're going to be looking at the Code of Hammurabi, and I want you to look at the picture of the artifact. We've seen this before when we studied Mesopotamia the first time. We're going back and we're reviewing some of the key points. Tell me, what can you tell from the artifact?
Old.
Old, okay.
That was carved.
It was carved.
The person sitting in the chair might have been royal.
Okay, might have been royal because, how do you know that?
Because it looks like the other person's like doing, like praising him or something, and he has all this decorative stuff on him.
Okay, so you're going to move to our next step, which is setting up our notebooks for this activity. So I'd like you to open up your ISN, your Interactive Student Notebook, to page 68 and 69. And on page 69 on the right-hand side, I'm going to give you what gets glued down on page 69. And clear everything off your desk except your notebook and something to write. I'm going to put a little time on the screen, and I'm going to let each one of you read all of the laws independently. You have a selection of laws from the Code of Hammurabi that was carved into that artifact we looked at the beginning of class. Read these laws to yourself independently. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that, and then I'm going to give you the activity you and your partner are going to work on together. Okay, moving on to the portion that you're going to work with your partner. Okay? We are going to be analyzing the actual laws. Okay? And you have some questions that you and your partner are going to use to analyze the laws you just read. Okay? You're going to discuss, you're going to come to a conclusion, and you're going to record it onto the page in your notebook. Okay? Make sure that you are citing your evidence when you are answering the questions. Go.
Whose eye was worth the most? The freed man. And whose eye was worth the least? At the slave. And how did you reach these conclusions? Because of the law stated. Was everyone equal in Babylon?
No, they were
Yeah,
not.
we said no. And cite two pieces of evidence from the text to support your answer. We put code 202 and code 199 because code 202 says if anyone strike the body of a higher in rank, then he shall receive 60 blows with an ox whip in public.
I thought that this said in laws 196 through 199 again.
Oh.
So I was about to say, how could it be 202, but then I flipped back. And it said 203.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're analyzing just the laws about taking out an eye. And you are analyzing based on the text whose eye was worth more.
Yeah. Was everyone equal in that one?
If you take another man's eye, he shall be put out. His eye shall be put out, I think. Because
But how is that? Because you're taking out an eye isn't really having value. So taking out an eye isn't really worth anything. But like, is taking out an eye worth anything?
yes, sight.
True. That is important. I think you're right.
It says of a man in higher rank. It says in law 202, if one strike the body of a man in higher rank, then he shall receive 60 blows with an ox whip in public. So that's like a punishment for hitting a man in higher rank.
So for the first one we could write. It explains the rank of
Yeah, they're like ranks.
of the victim slash crime committer, and two it has like for the same crime. Even if it's the same crime, they have different consequences for
Yeah, like if they have different ranks, so that's like a piece of evidence.
Time. want you to keep your notebooks open. You can flip them back to so you just see the one side of with your page on page 69. So that you can use it to help you in the next part of the activity. Half of you have one crime. The other half of you have a different crime. What you are going to do is, with your partners, using the evidence from your analyzing the text earlier, you and your partners are going to decide on the punishment for that crime. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to discuss it and really think about why that punishment is. Use some of the evidence from the text that you analyzed earlier.
We could do, if a slave died, they would just have to pay.
Yeah, well, they should be put to death because they killed somebody.
If that was higher rank.
So
if it was a higher rank,
they should be put to death, but if it was a lower one, they should be just pay off. Write that down.
I think that if a doctor operated on a slave and the slave died, I think he would have to replace the slave.
Yeah, that's just like the eye. When if he took out an eye of a slave, he would have to pay 1/2 of the cost.
So I say that it is, we have to pay the man 2 gold mana because it says if you take out a man's eye or take out a slave's eye or bone, or break his bone,
Yeah, you have to. Do you pay the man who had the slave?
yes, I believe so. I believe you would pay the man 2 mana, the owner of the slave.
Rule number 198.
Okay, time. Now, I'm going to randomly select somebody for the next part. Andrew Latier. Judges wear black robes, so you can just put it over your shoulders if you'd like. And judges carry a gavel. I have the judgment for both crimes, which was passed back in Hammurabi's day. And you are going to announce once we have some feedback from our fellow classmates. Andrew Walls, you and your partner, which crime did you have?
I am a doctor who operated on a slave and the slave died.
Okay. I am a doctor who operated on the slave and the slave died. What did you come up with as the possible punishment?
You have to pay 2 mana.
You have to pay 2 mina and explain to the class. I mean, everybody should know, but what is a mina?
A unit of money.
Unit of money, okay? Who else had I am a doctor who operated? Emily, tell us what you think the punishment was and why.
I think the punishment would be that he had to replace the slave because they would want all their slaves.
Okay, Graham?
I think that when this crime is committed, just like Rule 199, you have to pay half of that dead slave's value because at the time, slaves were a very low rank and weren't sought out to be that important.
Graham, very good. We were looking at law number 219. So, Judge, we're going to let our partners know out here what was the punishment for this crime.
You shall replace the slave with another slave.
Raise your hand if you have crime 218. Okay. Faye and Aaron.
I'm a physician who operated on a patient and that patient died. I think it all depends on the rank because as in 199 that if a man put out the eye of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 of the value. I think if a physician did it on a manslave, then that person should pay at least 1 gold. And if he did it to somebody on his rank, then he should lose his hands. But if he did it to somebody on a higher rank, he should lose his life, such as the person who the patient did.
Okay. Greer.
I think that if the patient was in a higher class, then the physician should be put to death. But if it, pretty much what they said, it all depends on who the patient was.
Kiara?
We said that if it was a higher rank, they should be put to death as well. But for a lower rank, they should just pay it off.
Judge, okay, will you please pass judgment on these crimes?
Your hands shall be cut off.
All right, thank you for your service, Judge. Okay, let's talk about why. Why in crime 218, I am a physician who operated on a patient and that patient died? Why was the physician's hands cut off?
Because he let someone of middle rank die, but they aren't lower rank, but they themselves are a pretty high rank themselves. But they were given the job to take care of someone and they failed, so they got their hands cut off.
Okay, Aaron?
I think the reason that they had their hands cut off was because it was their responsibility for them, and that they had to help them with their hands. And since they failed, well, they had their hands cut off because they had no use for. They probably thought that they had no use for them since they couldn't do the job.
Let's think about that. Let's think about a physician, a doctor. If you are somebody who operates, like Aaron was saying, you need these, right? Okay. So if he misused these and led to somebody's death, his hands are cut off. But why were the doctor's hands who operated on the slave, all he had to do was replace the slave? His hands weren't cut off.
Because the slave is not in as high rank, and so they weren't really that important, and so they just had to replace it, so that, because they could always, they want to keep their slaves because the slaves do most of their work.
Now we're going to look at, were these laws fair or unfair? And this is your personal interpretation and opinion for the next part of the lesson. Turn to page 68 in your ISN. The title of this page, you entitled, You Be the Judge. So on page 68, you are going to use the information from page 69 to assess the laws, okay? And the way you're going to do it is to create a spectrum. A spectrum is basically, looks like a number line, okay? But you are going to be using one side as fair and the other side as unfair. And for each law, you're going to give me the number of the law, and you're going to place on the spectrum where you feel that law falls. For every law on page 69, you are going to create a spectrum of fairness based on your evaluation of each law. Okay? Now, when we do our ISN work, what are some of the things that you have control over? The color. How you do it. Organization of it. What else do you have control of in your ISN? Design. Okay? So, as long as you evaluate each law on a spectrum, you have completed the assignment. In what way you do that is totally up to you. So, from now until the end of class, you can go ahead and get started on constructing your spectrums for your laws. If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll come to you. Okay, so for the remainder of the week, we're going to continue to review our River Valley civilizations. So we reviewed Mesopotamia today. Tomorrow, we're going to move on and review Egypt. If you do not have any homework, please make sure you have your notebooks, and we will go over the spectrum in our notebook check. Thank you.